Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of art and popular cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, Leonardo Miranda,
Hello.
and Miguel Aido.
Hi there.
Hey. Today we talk about Taste of Sherry, but before any ado, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or simply give us a like. Taste of Sherry is a 1997 Iranian minimalist drama written and directed by Abbas Kiarostami. The film follows a middle-aged man, Mr. Batty, who drives through a Tehran suburb in search of someone willing to carry out the task of burying him after his suicide. Having won the Palme d'Or at the 1997 Cannes Film Festival, it is considered to be one of Kiarostami's exemplary masterpieces. However, was Royale Without Cheese as enticed to get into Mr. Batty's car and follow into this spiritual road, or did we go, nah, thanks pal, you're not fooling me, and stick to the sidewalk? Friendos, what do we think?
What do you guys think? I thought it was an amazing film.
I thought it was a tremendous film.
Beautiful.
I thought it was a tremendous film. Funnily enough, one of our previous guests on the show, in one of our interviews from last year, Frank Mosley, on the same day I watched the film, he had a t-shirt that he posted on his story that was with Close-Up, the documentary by Kiarostami. And so I said,
Also amazing.
great film, just saw another for the podcast, Taste of Cherry, tremendous film. So it was like everybody was in harmony on that day. Tremendous film, great film. Just off the bat, kind of giving that compliment to the movie. I think that Taste of Cherry, I've seen it a couple of years ago. Besides that film, I had seen a couple of others from Kiarostami, of course. Close Up, the documentary, which blew my mind at the time that we seen it. We saw it at film school. Then again, we had what other ones that I saw?
We saw also.
Where is a Friend's House?
Exactly.
I saw that one, but there was another one that was about a soccer match. I don't remember the name. That was a pretty interesting one. Black and white.
Not sure. Black and white.
Yeah, complicated. But the editing, second year, I don't think you were in
Yeah.
it, I think, Lenny. So, but yeah, I think it's a very interesting film. First and foremost, let's really talk about the concept here. I think that there's something about death that goes very well in hand with the concept of traveling, a rite of passage, breaking a wall, a barrier, which in this film is very much expressed through the idea of inside, outside, and with the concept, the visual device of the car being used here with the mise-en-scène. And with that said, the concept of the car and trying to reach the strangers from that inside, which is the car where Mr. Batty drives around Tehran in the suburbs and throughout that quarry, trying to find the one person, the one stranger who will comply to his request out of this thing, which is money. He's trying to look for someone who is in desperate need for money. That's kind of the basic premise in his head. Who will fit the request? Out of that, I think more than a film about death, and I will just start by commenting on this. There's just something very interesting about the connection between death and travel. It just goes so well in hand. That is sort of, fits like a glove. It's kind of pleasureful. There's something there that is to do with some part of the human brain that connects well with that sense of what is the afterlife, what is to dare to go there, and to dare to go there more than anything is the act of suicide, is to kill oneself, is to perpetrate against one's own physical being, right? And that implies a certain insane courage that I think is expressed visually so well in this film, in the sightings that Mr. Batty has of that quarry and around that quarry in the film, with the dirt coming down and the dust in the air. It really feels like a sort of Dante's Inferno, where in actuality, it's also about this sense of traveling through the 9 realms of hell until you get to the bottom of it, where the devil lives. And you see that so throughout, Greek mythology, with the boatman that carries you off to the other world. I was always reminded of that aspect of the film that brings a certain magic to it, and an innate historical mythology to it that just speaks to every one of us as you watch and brings this magic to the film. Moreover, beyond just the natural concept of that goes well with that narrative device of the travel and trying to look for the boatman, essentially, in all of these 3 strangers that Mr. Batty comes across to and tries to present his request of essentially for our listeners as a reminder, what does he request? He requests that, look, I'll take some pills, I'll go inside this hole the very next morning. You call my name twice. If I wake up, help me get out of the hole. If I don't, throw 20 shovels of dirt in there, I'm buried, sent off. And what's interesting about that, first and foremost, before anything, is that if you read the synopsis to this film and you think about suicide, and for the longest time you know what the request will be if as a viewer you read the synopsis and you know the concept, but you don't know what he will be asking. You may be thinking at first that, okay, he will ask to be shot, to be drowned, please throw me out of something somewhere, drown me or whatever, kill me in some way, help me being killed. But the thing is, the request is so clean when it comes, and it takes a while until it comes. And it's interesting, that choice, until you actually find a stranger that you can tell the story to. The first one being the teen that he receives in his car, a teen who is undergoing military training. He seems nervous, kind of,
Is this guy a
you know,
serial killer or
first
not?
steps. Is this guy a serial killer or not? There's a lot of that social awkwardness that comes from what is the request. And I think one of the humorous, there's a level of humor in the film, accidentally so. I don't know if intently, but at least accidentally there is. And I think it works wonders in the film in an odd way, because you know that the subtext, because he doesn't really say what the request is at first, because he spends so long with euphemisms and metaphors trying to explain what the job is without saying what the job is, people start asking, okay, what is the job? What is the job? And he's like, do you know how a priest, is very good with words? That's all I need from you. Your actions, I need your hands of true believer, not your tongue, not your, okay, what is the job, man? And I'm kind of laughing at it because you're not helping yourself. If you just said what you want, you at least had a chance. Maybe they would say no, but at least you had a chance. Instead, he just like takes his time, kind of anticipating, because he thinks it will help him. And I just find it very funny, but also very natural. Anyway,
It's also interesting because it's like he's meeting with all these people, so in a way he's perfecting the approach with each one of them. So the first one goes a bit bad because it's like he's very creepy and weird and doesn't explain itself, and it's very like confrontational at some point with the teen when he leaves the car and is showing the place, and he's like, but just take the money, and then with the other people he's a bit more like, okay. It's like, so there's a level which then also makes sense, but we'll talk about that later. But the ending, like, there's a level of performance in what he's doing to these people, and talking to them, and trying to convince them to do this thing, which I think is interesting. But go on.
But even so, even if at first he's a little unsure about how to make his point, he's still very astute, I think, in the way that he tries to talk them over, because he always brings up the money thing, are you you're struggling with money or not, and so he always goes for very specific points that people might identify with, I guess, and sort of weak points in their character. So he's always, even though I feel that he's always very intelligent about how he expresses his request, which is very morbid, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing is, it's, to me, it's morbid because it implies helping someone to die, but it's so clean, the request itself.
Yes, it's very sweet, neatly, almost.
Yeah, neatly prepared. The hole is already there. No need to, it's almost like you don't need to do nothing, Mr. Helper. It's very clean. You get half now, half later. You just need to bury me. You don't take part in the killing, which is interesting because for you, the viewer, and the one being invited to doing this, it's almost very luring. You almost feel like you could do this. That's almost like the thing that you feel, come on, do it for him. He's so desperate that you there's a part of you that wants to reach out to him and satisfy that need, but at the same time, so that's very interesting. That's very smart, narratively speaking, because if it was otherwise, it's ingenious, I think, because it's so natural, so easy to go for something more, cliche, like hang me or throw me or drown me, things that we have seen before. And here it's very kind of beautiful, like you said, Mike.
But I think yeah, that's true. But I think it comes from the fact that really what he's asking of the people isn't so much kill me. It's more like, I'm kind of struggling with this. I'm kind of having doubts. So maybe be there in case I want to
Yeah.
keep living. It's less of a request of killing herself, but more like an expression of his doubt, I think, which then he completely reveals by asking the guy not just go there, but to also throw stones and then kind of shake him,
Shake.
see if he's alive. So he completely reveals his doubt about what he's doing, and I think that's the sweet part because it's less sort of a blunt request of the people, but kind of an expression of how he doesn't really want to do this. Which, yeah, which is very sad because at the end of the day, it's not about him killing himself. It's about you know if he really wants to do it or not. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
I
looking
think
for a
that's it.
reason to live. I feel that's sort of the the thing with the character is like, on one hand, I feel like he's decided to kill himself in the beginning, but as it goes along, it's like he's having these connections or having these little doubts about, do I really want to do this? Which I think is, I mean, narratively, the film it's like genius because it's so simple. It's like a very simple in terms of the premise. It's like, so it's this guy who wants to kill himself and wants to be buried properly, let's say, sort of a ritualistic thing almost. And he's just going around talking to people. It seems so, doesn't seem like it would lend itself to such, like, to be so engaging, but it really is because there's so much tension with every interaction because you already know like what's going on with him. And so seeing him go through that and then the little turns in the character like that Miguel was mentioning, of suddenly he gets out of the car, starts going towards I think it's like a university, I think, or something like that,
Yeah,
where the other
Science
man,
Institute, I think.
yeah, exactly, where the man is teaching, and suddenly he's leaving the car, and it's something different because he hasn't moved this way in the frame before, and suddenly you see him run, the camera tracking him, and he's like with tears in his eyes, almost like, shake me if I'm not really, just to make sure that I'm not really dead. It's very profound because you don't need a reason to know why he's killing himself. I think that's also something that works really well. And one of the characters, the one who says the taste of cherries, like, really puts that into perspective, which is, yeah, life is tough, we get it, like, you should give me a reason, but there's also like an understanding that everyone could have a reason, but life is worth living, and it's very beautiful.
Especially coming from the guy that had already gone through that
Exactly,
sentence.
exactly.
And I mean, he's such a good actor. I mean, his performance, I want to get his name right. It's Homayoun Hershadi. I
Yeah,
mean, the
I've
main
seen him in
guy,
other things, and he's very
he's
good
so good in such
and a
a
beautiful man, I
nuanced
must add.
performance. Yes, very photogenic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so subtle. Immediately from the beginning, you can tell he's kind of emotionless about everything, and right from the bat, it's a great performance. And yeah,
So great. The way he moves his hands, I don't know, the way he
yeah,
looks at stuff. I want to look at him all day, I'm like, so mysterious.
yeah.
You want to know what's behind his eyes. And that's why it's so engaging, the fact, I don't know why he chose this, but it's interesting that I don't know. It keeps the things mysterious. I'm more interested in knowing why ultimately he chooses to live. That's more interesting when you see the glimmer in his eyes.
Yeah.
Totally in silent as he listens to the story of that older man, that is a delicious sensorial monologue that he has about that memory of once trying to kill himself, and he's silent. And the way that final visitor, I call them visitors essentially to his car, basically this kind of sort of help, the way he appears, he doesn't appear physically first like it has happened with the other visitors. He's a point of view in the car. He's just a voice at first. You don't see him picking up the man on the streets like you've seen the other examples. He's just a voice. So shall we go? And you hear this voice of God almost. So it's super interesting. It's like a calling back to life, and then you see that overhead shot of the car going along the winding road that just extends itself and extends itself. And where are we going? Are we going to death again? Are we going to the hole again? Or are we going to the way of the living? And he doesn't go, you're used to the pattern of that road leading you to that same hole. Every time you see the car from an outside perspective is an overhead shot of him kind of going around that winding road back to the hole next to the tree where he expects to be buried. Now he's going away at the finale into that place, which is the meeting place, the Science Institute, where he leaves his car and he goes for the man, like you said, Leo. He goes for hope. He tries to express that through in a very nuanced way, which is, throw me stones. 2, okay, I'll throw you 3. He has all those lines that are very indicative of his will to live. But he doesn't say directly, but you see his trepidation. Moreover, before that, you have the incident where he says, in the car, just by the end of the story of the man, he says, like, what if I don't reply? What if I don't reply? Right there, I already see like his willingness to live, his fear of death, kind of the reversal of his desire. Is very interesting. And one of the things I was trying to say at the beginning, my line of thought was precisely, I was speaking of this being a film about death and the concept of travel, but more so, and this is tied with the mise-en-scène of the film visually, I think it's a film about connection between strangers. In a weird, unexpected way. It is elusive in the way that it seems all about kind of this melancholic corner of human life, a man killing himself. What does it mean one killing himself, all of that. But I think it's also about kind of, often what is one person to try and kill himself. Normally he has gone pessimistic, he becomes super cynical about in his worldviews. There's no connection possible to be made between him and other men. He has lost faith in humanity and friendships. And here is kind of a call to help. He meets these people, and there's always a sort of barrier between him and those people, if you see, throughout the film. And there's a lot of play in the mise-en-scène with the off-screen. I think Kiarostami plays with the off-screen constantly. And what people look at and what people refer to in this film, often you don't see it. You see what they're looking at, what they're talking about, but only afterwards do you see the item or the person they are directing themselves at. So that implies always a sort of distance or barrier. He's talking to them. Sometimes he eventually expresses finally what is his desire to them. I want you to bury me. Sometimes he doesn't even get to say that. He just gives up because he sees the person's not going with him inside the car. So there's always that barrier until finally, and then when he does kind of reveal his desire to the 2 visitors that go with him inside the car, most of them say no. Until when there you have one, solid, generous soul, let's say the final one, the older man, who really accesses him in this new way, which really solves the question of how do you stop a man that wants to die from dying. And I thought it was ingenious because you present someone who actually says, yes, okay, I'll bury you. He allows himself to breathe. He allows this man, Mr. Betty, to have some sense of relief from this life, but it occurs in an imaginarium sort of plane. The relief doesn't come from me actually endorsing you in this thing you want to make. I'm saying yes to you now. And then that's enough for you to be satisfied. He's like, oh, you're saying yes? I don't know if I want this now. You almost feel that turn inside his heart, because all he wanted to hear was someone to say yes to him. Okay, you can do that. But check this out. And then he tells them the reversal of what he's losing. It's almost like you see that expression, you are seeing the glass half empty, look at it half full. That's kind of what he's doing at that moment. And I think it's beautiful because it's the ultimate character who allows him relief, telling him, yes, I can do that for you, sure. Tomorrow, okay, I'll do it. And to the very end, he says, I'll do it. No, he doesn't go back on his promise. The man has this kind of honor to his word that is very admirable. But at the same time, to put him on an equal kind of position to him, I too have committed suicide, and I think the character needed that. The only way you could break this other man, our protagonist's will from committing suicide, is showing another man who has gone near that path but changed. And why he changed? Because the taste of cherry. There's still greenery, there's still sunrise, there's still the joy de vivre, let's say. And I found the story, I think there's one of the absolute tenets of beautiful kind of dialogue is when you can make it sensorial, and when you hear someone telling a story, a character telling a story inside a story, let's say, can be wondrous if done right. And it's very difficult at times. It can sound like exposition, but because it's so within the answering of the need of the character, the protagonist, the story that he tells of trying to hang himself, but in all the detail of not being able to, so he tries to tighten the rope a little bit further, more, but then he grabs a little bit of mulberries or cherries, eats them, and it's a constant. There's always like these unpredictable chains of actions and new discoveries, and then the kids come, and you can imagine the kids and how they eat the berries, and then he says, I brought the berries back home, I give them to my wife. It's this constant kind of building up of happiness that can be found in life through small pleasures of things, and I thought it was beautiful. It's like reading a beautiful book in a way. It has that novel quality. And so it's about that. It's kind of about breaking the barriers between strangers. All he's asking, this is essentially kind of in the subtext of the older man's monologue. He says at the beginning, what you need is talk to your family, to your friends, instead of being here talking to me. But in that moment, that older man functions as a friend. He is vulnerable with him. He shares a little bit of his own life, more than the other guys have done, who have kind of become preachy and say, you shouldn't do that. The Quran says you shouldn't do that. So it's more moral tales, where this man is much more personal. So it becomes a lesson in kind of empathy and how can you be, understanding of one another and be giving to one another. And I thought it goes much beyond just this idea of, in a lesser film, I think you would get resolved this idea of how do you move a man from killing himself. Imagine a soap opera. I think it would be the version of one of the earlier examples where they would give like a sort of morality reason. You shouldn't kill yourself because, you're not going to heaven or something, kind of preachy thing, and it wouldn't be this way. So I think, it's part of the charm of the film, and this trying to establish a connection between strangers. And to that effect, that lack of connection often comes with that sense of the off-screen, which you have lots of times just using the car as a device. When you have the teen inside the car, Betty outside the car, and you have this beautiful shot, point of view shot of the teen and Betty outside the car going to the hole. And he talks about the hole, and you never see the hole. And he's talking about that in a very clean way. It's the first time you hear the request of how he wants to die, how he wants the team to help him, but you never see the hole. So at the same time, you have this beautiful contrast where it's a clean request, but death is always like a dirty thing, a disgraceful thing. He's always pointing at the hole at the bottom edge of the frame, but you don't see it. And I thought, oh my God, that's genius. That's amazing. Because I'm kind of repulsed by it, like the kid. And then whenever you see the kid, he's behind the car, kind of the glass, kind of half cut, and I'm like, genius, amazing, beautiful. My brain is exploding, like amazing. And you see the divide and then the fear, and of course, then he runs away. And then when he's at the tower station with the guard, and he's talking with the guard, it's amazing. He kind of stops the car. You don't see the guard, you see the stairs. He's talking with the guard. It's unseen, it's just a voice. He goes up there. He talks about the beauty of the dirt, the beauty of the earth. Actually, you don't know what he's talking about. There's a reversal of the shot there, mountaintop, rocks crumbling down. And then you have this recurring thing later on of kind of him interacting with the outside world and the kind of the dust and everything. And there's a beautiful shot of his shadow, like in the usage of the construction kind of vehicles and all the process there, the taking out of the dirt, putting it back in its place, changing its place, and how he becomes one with earth again, in all this kind of, it's like he's in some sort of hell or purgatory, this kind of away from city. It's very interesting.
Even him,
yeah,
even him sitting down, kind of like accepting that no one will help him. I mean, it was such an interesting shot. I thought it was, and also once again very well acted. Kind of shoulders shrugged and just meandering there, but it's like you said. I mean, it's like this purgatory place that he's arrived at where no one has helped him, and he kind of just gives up. Then once again, someone comes to him, which I think is the first time someone addresses him instead of the other way around. And from that point on, you kind of start to feel like instead of him seeking out people, it's people that kind of start to help him out, with that guy and then the older man that truly helps him. So yeah, it's kind of a turning point, I think, and very interesting as well. but always very well acted. I mean, I was so amazed by this guy. I mean, and also the choices that he makes in the way he turns to the characters when it's just the two sitting in the car. I think it's always so well timed. When he chooses to look at the character he's talking to. I mean, it's something I start to notice like midway through the film, but it's, I have to rewatch it because it tells so much about the things that he's talking about, and what the most important things to him, what they are, and especially when then the older guy talks to him about, having committed or tried to commit suicide, and then he says, yeah, but don't talk to me about those things, because you don't need to know those things. And he starts to get emotional and just looks forward. I mean, every choice that he makes, it's very very poignant. Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about shot reverse shot in the past. Like this is a great example of, how powerful that is as a tool. Like, because he's very purposeful of when he cuts to one or to the other. It's not just functional. It's not just, oh, this one is talking, let's put the camera on him. This one is talking, let's put the camera on him. It's very, sometimes we stay very long with someone, as Tomás was saying, like someone is telling a story off screen and we stay with him, listening to it, always looking ahead, the world passing him by in the windows. It's like, it's very suggestive constantly and super, and yes, so filled of details, even though it's a pretty simple like filmmaking tool, the shot reverse shot. As you were saying, the moments he decides to look at the other characters, stuff like that, even the the window being a little up or a little down, there's moments like that. Like when he decides to go to that science school, the window is a little down, like, whereas most of the time in the film the window on his side is always up and the other side is more in the middle because they are more doubtful. And I think there's so much in the film.
Yeah, I mean, and the choices of not showing the inside of the car with the shot reverse shot, and just being outside and seeing the car going through that path, and us hearing the dialogue, like a narration. I mean, it's, it takes us away from what they're actually saying, which is still important, but you go back to the path and the journey, and it kind of takes you back once again to the fact that they're going to the hole. So it's always a bit depressing that whenever we go to the outside of the van, because it keeps reminding us that no matter what the story is being told and who's trying to persuade who, that they're always going back to the tree. And yeah, it's always a bit sad whenever I saw the van, and it's always so slow. So it
Yeah.
kind of,
And so barren, like the
yeah,
land is like.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, like how the characters behave towards him, because the first ones, it's like they don't want to help him, but they also like they aren't, they don't try to convince him like, oh, you shouldn't kill yourself or stuff like that. Whereas the character that decides to help him is, like Tomás was saying, is the one who's more like giving him a story of why he didn't commit suicide. So he's the one who's trying to convince him the most to not do this, even though he has accepted it, and even like he's going to take the money because it's useful for him. So it's interesting. I think that's also what moves the main character. It's like, this guy needs the money. He could take my money, and yet he's still trying to stop me from doing this thing that is going to benefit him. And it goes back to what he says to the kid in the beginning. It's like, it's money, you need the money, just take it. What the reason why doesn't matter, but it matters.
And
Like, and
an
that's what's
important
beautiful.
point to that is that then at the end he doesn't choose to take the money right away. He chooses to take it after the job is done, which is also
Yeah.
relevant, about why he's doing that, why he's trying to tell that story and persuade the guy not to kill himself.
And that detail to me of the of not taking half the money now but all later was really interesting, because it's just another added layer in the sense of the turn of the will of Mr. Batty regarding whether he wants to die or not, because it's almost something that it means unfinished business on Earth, almost like, why is he doing this? I didn't plan for this to go this way. It's another thing that keeps him bound to here. I think that the man chooses to not take half the money. It's almost another reason that he needs to stay awake for the next day. And I really like the final shot, not the very final shot, but the final shot we have within the narrative world, so to speak, where he goes down into the hole, ready to sleep, and it gets progressively dark. You hear the mountaintop soundscape, a dog barking in the distance. I don't know if even city noises, mostly exactly, or what I was just about to say, the rain, and it's the visual and oral rhyme with the story of the older man is so beautiful because the rain almost entirely occurs when darkness sets and you cease to see his face. But the moment you cease to see his face and you hear the rain the strongest, you know that rain is falling on his face and he's feeling something. And to me, that's kind of like his taste of cherry. He's having a taste of rain. So maybe that's the thing that makes him kind of in his own version of the story feel again for life and not want to miss this. You see him in that hole and you feel what he's going through, the scent of earth, the feeling of rain. Do I want to miss all of this again? And the fact that it goes to black and you have all these sensorial things coming onto you, just like the taste of cherry, you feel like it comes from that same place of that calling to back to life. Don't go away, to not lose this.
That's
The ending
interesting.
itself.
I hadn't
Yes, sure.
considered that. No, I hadn't considered that, and in fact, I thought the opposite. I thought the rain actually built tension, perhaps unnecessarily, but I don't know. I thought that the fact that it's raining suddenly might mean that that grave kind of becomes flooded with rain, and I don't know. For me, it created a sense of urgency somehow that might not go well or according to their plan. Again, I'm not sure if that was the intention.
Yeah.
I
Well,
kind
I
of I
understand
kind of
it.
see what you mean
Mhm.
also. Yeah,
Mhm.
makes sense.
What is interesting is also the meta ending, which I'm still riddled by, but I'm very
Yeah,
intrigued by
it's
what Leo is going to say about it in terms of the performance.
I have a theory, but
Right.
Theory.
no, my theory is like it's almost like I mean the whole film, if you think about it, goes through different characters, and he's the main one is not the only one that is going through problems. I mean, and we kind of see this with everyone, the soldier teen that is very shy, and the older guy that helps him that had already tried to commit suicide, and I mean every one of them has problems. And you kind of go back to the speech of the old man that says, no problem doesn't have a solution, everything is solvable. And ultimately I think that that's not kind of a cool lesson as well that the film has, that every problem, that you can tackle every problem, that you don't need to kill yourself at the end of the day. And taking that to the ending, I think that, I mean, you go into reality, and for me it was like, yeah, this is just a film as well. I mean, it's just another thing that we are doing. That it's a bit like he's saying, don't worry, this was a story. I mean, it's also kind of another thing that happens in life that doesn't have to have this huge meaning that leaves us blind and lost. I think, I think that's kind of it. I mean, I'm really not sure entirely because it's so unexpected, but at the same time I'm kind of leaning towards that explanation that, it's like any one of these characters has problems, but that they can be solved. I think this is also a movie at the end of the day that can just be filmed and we move on to something else. And seeing them then being actors and being a crew kind of puts you in the perspective of, yeah, this is just something that is being done in a very cold way. And yeah, I think I linked it somehow with these ideas, but I'm not entirely sure because yeah, you need to reflect on it a little bit, and I'm curious to see what you guys thought.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
mean,
even
yeah.
sure if I made sense right.
I don't even know if
No, I
I.
think I think I
Yeah.
understand more or less.
Yeah. That made sense. I think but it is it's a very strange ending, completely unexpected. I mean, not completely, I guess. Kiarostami likes this type of metatextual play. Is it like close up? If you've seen it, I know you guys have seen it, but yeah, also has this type of thing. But here it's because the film wasn't in that register of between fiction and reality, so it comes out of nowhere. Um, in the cut to video, because it's no longer the film, so it also has that element. But I don't know. I think to me it was. I mean, there's so many meanings, so many ways you can approach it. At least on first impact, it was like the recontextualization of that space that is the place of the death, supposedly where he's going to kill himself. I think it's like near the area of the hole, and then suddenly like there's a bunch of people happily making a film, smiling, having a smoke. The colors are more like vibrant, stuff like that. And so it also has connected to what Miguel is saying, which is, you know, there's life here, there's happiness here, in the process of making a film. That's one idea I kind of took from that. That it's almost like Kiarostami is saying, my taste of cherry is making a film with people. They're happy and they're having
Yeah.
fun.
Yes, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's cool.
but I don't know. There's probably
A dozen
other
things
ways.
you could say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
other things you can see in it.
Yeah, you know what? I have something to add to that regard. To what you all said. It's very interesting because none of you touched upon this little detail, which I found in the ending, which is in connection to what I kind of described about the narrative ending, so to speak, when he is in the hole and all the sounds he hears. One of the last sounds he hears is kind of the marching of soldiers, just harkening back to one of that initial story that he tells the teen training of, this is how we do it back in the day when we marched, when we did pull-ups, we said 1 2 3 4 1 2. So to me it's kind of a sort of flashback to his better days, the days when he was happy, and it's kind of this, even the color changes, the quality of the film changes, the video, of course. So in the deserted barren land is no longer like that. It's green, it's flowery, and what you see on screen, what Kiarostami is filming, is what it seems to me in this sort of making of thing, this meta view, is the scene that never was in the film, which is in continuation to his death. Is the scene where his soldier friends, because these are people, this kind of group of people, he's dressed in green in military uniforms, if you look closely, are going to his grave, next to his grave, and just sitting there. Now, I don't know what would happen there in terms of narrative continuity. Is he going to come out of the grave, see his friends again? We kind of don't see that. To me, kind of Mr. Batty's consciousness becomes the consciousness of everybody in the room, almost like he's no longer in the hole. But it's almost like his consciousness has not risen up to an afterlife. It has not risen up to death. It has risen up to life, woken up to life, it is kind of swimming in light, in this kind of greenery and this color and these people who are happy taking a smoke and who are his friends from the good old days, his soldier friends that you see there, kind of roaming around, sitting down on the hill. And that part I can explain it to me, maybe in a very kind of spiritual way, because we don't see his body, we don't no longer see the character. He has decided to live again. At least that's my interpretation. That's what I choose to believe by seeing his friends there. Maybe not. Maybe he died, and that's his last sort of glimmer. The mind going back in time. It could be. Who knows? A dozen meanings. But yeah, and the thing that is most puzzling is really the film crew, right there filming the thing. But I guess you could say that, that this is Kiarostami's kind of taste of cherry.
And I mean,
the filming of it.
And one of the lessons was problems have solutions, take things more positively, more lightly. And I think this is kind of the realization of that. It's like, this is no longer a story of fiction that's something kind of depressing and sad. Suddenly this is real life and it's positive and it's people smiling. And it's like everything can be taken to a level of being okay in a sense and being positive. And I think at the end it's kind of the realization of that. It's like we just went through this whole story, this whole fiction, but right now we also can take this as a piece of art and just put it very positively, very lightly into perspective and just see it as something that has a kind of a solution in a sense, just like the character, like every character is trying to achieve solutions for their problems. So even though it's not really a problem, it's a way of looking at things positively. And for me, I always connect it like this. I'm not sure it's right, but I mean, because I see the crew and because it's very meta, you know, it's not just something you could say it's part of the narrative. It's suddenly outside of it, and you see the main actor smoking, and the
Yeah, you do
crew.
see
So
him as the actor. That's true.
yes,
Hmm.
so you have to have another perspective of it, and try to think about what Kiarostami himself was trying to say. And so yeah, you kind of go into that direction of this is his cherry, this is his way of you know of
So
being
when you
okay and
think,
positive.
when you see the film crew, and you connect that to the idea of positivity and being okay, how do you connect those two things?
No, I mean, as soon as I see crew and it becomes meta, for me, I kind of I need to abandon the narrative that I just saw and think in other in other terms indirectly about what Kurosami was trying to say. It's almost like a code of somehow of a little message, a little extra message that he was trying to convey that is a bit separated from the rest of the narrative. And to me, if you connect it with the themes of of the main film, it's it's about, you know, looking at life positively. And so the story itself is the part is like the depressing part, the problem part where, you know, you're reflecting on issues that human beings go through, and then you see the positive side of it, which is it's just a film. It's just at the end of the day people making a film expressing an idea, but that they can do while smoking and talking and being positive and smiling. So that's
So
how I see it.
if I understand it correctly, you see almost like the meta vision of the filmmaking, the film crew present in that has something that has its problems, but also can be something that can be quite communal and happy taking a smoke, building together something, that part of being positive
I
in
mean,
life.
if I in terms of the analogy, I would say the problem is like the movie part, the fiction part, because it delves into problems of the human nature and everything we see in the actual story. And then the positive part is the fact that this is all just a film. It's fiction. It's not real. And so the positive part is just the people actually doing it, smiling and having a smoke, and as you said, in a communal manner. Um, it's these two realms of not taking yourself too seriously. I guess it's just a film.
Too much, too, because it's a very
Yeah,
like a
it's
unique ending. So there's that. What you said, I think, makes sense. I think I see that. But I would have to think more. Like,
yeah.
what it
Uh,
mean? What do
To
it
me,
mean?
personally, it's like, which is totally like a dozen meanings. You can take it or leave
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
But to me, it's like almost like when we see the film crew, we break away all cynicism of this being a compact kind of fictional thing. This might be a narrative, this might be a story, but I'm not trying to um, tie this in a nice little bow and let it be a message to everyone. It actually exists here in real life, like there's a breaking away from the barrier of the screen. I believe in this. Um, the idea of the soap opera, that it just belongs in that thing, in that square, and it's supposed to be a movie, and we all go home and we forget about it. I think it kind of, when he intervenes as the author, becoming himself a character in his movie, is something that I also live in this world. The world in the film is the world I share. Is has real the world of fiction is not fake. It's not, it's here, it's now, it's real, it's the truth, the message that I believe in. It's not a pretty thing to just look at. Oh, we all should connect. Oh, we all should help each other or whatever. I think that's more of it to me. um
yeah,
yeah.
in a sense, it could be substituted by other forms of him, you know, giving that awareness of it, like winking at the camera or narrating in a very meta way what is happening. So it's another way of making that bridge and saying that, I think. But he chose to do it with a sort of a behind the scenes video. But I think there could be other ways that he could have done this.
That's all for today. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast official Instagram and Facebook pages. Feel free to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. And if you're on YouTube and want to see more videos like this, check out this next video right here. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Bye-bye, folks.
Bye-bye.